Hey, Richard. Thanks for joining me here. Can you briefly introduce yourself and tell me why you're relevant to talk about experimentation program management?
Sure. So my name is Richard Nhieu. I'm the director of web strategy here at Toast, and also ran the marketing website at SoFi. So my main charge is to drive the web strategy that includes testing, optimization, e-commerce, driving additional growth through the marketing website.
Yeah, cool. My first question here has to do with what I see and my experience in working with you, Richard, in kind of how you just explained. You do the web strategy, but you also bridge over to marketing and a lot of those activities quite a lot in previous roles and your current one at Toast. I'm curious about, my question is about how do you see the web experimentation activities as a function? So hypothesis testing and getting answers and data to support decisions. How do you see that function work, across teams that are built on channels like the web versus the marketing team? And so how do you see the experimentation process kind of bridge teams and team silos?
Yeah, so it's an interesting thing. I've built my career on building bridges
Oh,
across
nice.
multiple departments. And so that's marketing team to engineering, that's web team to marketing. And so it kind of came natural to understand that experimentation expands beyond the website. And so it's allowing the website to be a tool to inform how marketing can proceed, how we can make true business decisions on whether it's pricing, whether it's on messaging, not just because it's a web isolated channel, but how it actually can inform marketing channels and tactics and larger kind of macro decisions from a business standpoint.
Nice. Yeah. I like that answer. That's big. In my experience, real quick, there's a lack of understanding of that bridge. And for example, how experimentation can be used to make marketing more efficient is usually not something that's thought of front of mind for programs. But cool. Next question, Richard. This one around process. I know, Toast is focusing on restaurant POS systems as an interesting time right now, and your team has been just incredibly impressive over the past few months on what it's done and what it's pushed out and how it's supported the community. And I mean, you guys are going 100 miles an hour. So my question is around process and prioritization. What communication tools, and not literally tools, but just things, communication pieces and platforms or methods have you leveraged the most when you're coordinating as you run 100 miles an hour and do all the things that you're doing?
um, I'm not going to sit here and say we have everything down perfect because we are far from that. I think one of the examples you brought up was as the most recent COVID hit and our industry was in kind of dire straits. We kind of mobilized as aggressively as we could because and put our business aside, to be honest, and try to think of our customers first because they were feeling a lot more pain than we were, and we were trying to figure out anything and everything we could do to stand up to help them. It really came down to kind of mobilizing towards a very core focus and pulling in customers, or not customers, but probably pulling in resources across the entire organization that we knew that had the right skill sets to execute it. As far as technology is concerned, we kind of went a little, I mean, if Google Sheets is old school, but we went to Google Sheets to do a lot of organizations. I would say Slack was probably the biggest player in this, where we were all able to communicate in the right channels as rapidly as we could. And we just kind of kept in communication. It's amazing what you can do when you have a lot of talented people focused on a very finite amount of things with a very aggressive timeline. And really just pulling that those elements together and not having any other distractions, but leadership saying, do this and execute. and we were able to make a lot of things happen. So.
Yeah, I mean, what you guys did and how quickly you pushed stuff out was incredibly impressive. And I think there's a lot of lessons to learn from that to take over to normal times or to other industries. There's a lot of times when teams are working across different metrics and different goals, and they don't have that North Star alignment, like the urgency provided maybe in this case. Awesome. All right, so last question for you, and this one's a tool question, because I know you geek out quite a bit on technology. So I just wanted to, in your current role, previous as well, your perspective on advanced testing methodologies. From the perspective of, you mentioned earlier that you're using experimentation as this tool, this bridge to learn. There are experimentation methodologies that don't explicitly learn, they optimize at scale, and they're used and they're pretty powerful to do things like auto segmentation, auto allocation, the auto personalization tools and things like this. They're quite powerful, but they can be distinct and powerful in a bad way if you're not understanding what you're doing and how you're parameterizing things. So I want to just where do you see advanced testing methodologies fitting in with traditional test and learn methodologies for experimentation?
Yeah, this is definitely something I geek out on. I think in particular, leveraging the latest technologies and machine learning to optimize websites. How do we leverage that in a program to scale that is both balancing learning and kind of business and acceleration? And so I think there's pros and cons to either one, depending on the maturity of the program, depending on the maturity of the group that's running it. It's interesting because machine learning, as new as it is, it's been in ad buying for quite a while. So programmatic ad buying has, leveraged a lot of these algorithms to start to, push traffic into the higher winning ads and banners. And so this is kind of, as it starts to grow in popularity in the website, I think one thing you do find out is that it becomes a little bit of a black box. And if you allow the algorithm to drive your decisions, it's hard to iterate and learn from without kind of the right guardrails in place and really controlling the attributes that drive those decisions. And so I think to me, it's still, there's a huge maturity curve in the technology in itself as we've kind of advanced personalization, but it does provide a lot of additional bandwidth if used properly to not necessarily need to have like a full-time analyst to have to break out all the segments to understand where the opportunities are. And so this is kind of more in the personalization realm versus like testing. They're kind of connected in many ways, but it does allow for enhanced personalization where, personalization really is a proliferation of resources in the old school, method where you're managing 5 or 6 or 7 different landing pages with multiple segments. And so allowing for machine learning and advanced tactics to like actually accelerate that can be really beneficial if that's your end goal of the program. But if you don't have the traffic to divide and you have the capability and you want to actually like learn and be more rigorous, I think there are other tactics, but it's amazing to see the technology span to allow you these optionalities to kind of build the right program around the right tool sets and have the right tool sets to kind of accelerate your program.
Yeah. I like your point around the black box. I mean, just understanding how you're parameterizing it. There's in the modeling world, there's a saying that a model is only good at determining what parameters in the model affected the model, right? They don't capture the uncertainty outside of it. So if you're not intelligent enough, if you're not prepared with the right parameterization, the right content, the right framework for who you're talking to, then it can be dangerous. And yeah.
It basically goes back to your first point, right? Which is like, how do you use your CRO program to build bridges, right? I think like as a good kind of web practitioner, you have to understand beyond just the website. You have to understand marketing tactics. You have to understand your business. You have to understand the macro environment. And that's the only way you can be kind of successful at it, because your inputs and your traffic aren't necessarily stagnant. They come in with context. And so without understanding all those context inputs, you know, you're swimming a little blind, because then you're really generalizing your traffic, which is, you know, not what marketing is about. It's not what we're doing when we, you know, try to optimize for mobile segments and organic segments. And so understanding that broader spectrum, being able to communicate it out, and it all kind of like stitches together to really build a successful program.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah. I like that perspective. Oh, thanks, Richard. Really appreciate the answers here.
Thanks, Ben.